Welcome back to Harmonize Your Life, Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color with your host, Dr. Toni G. Alvarado. Well, it is the month of October, and you know that the month of October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I'm so delighted this month to be able to bring some awareness about breast health this month. I'm excited about the women that are going to be coming on our show this month to talk to us, to educate us, to inspire us, to bring awareness, and to encourage us concerning self-care and how to better care for ourselves. Around the topic of two topics this month, we're going to be dealing with the topic of breast cancer awareness, as well as this is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so it's going to be a wonderful month to be a part and to listen and to take part in the discussions on our podcast show this month. Today, I'm extremely excited to have with me a very special guest. All of my guests are special, aren't they? All of them are special. But this woman is very dear and near to my heart for a number of reasons. And I'm going to introduce our guest for today. I want to introduce Miss Shermanetta Carter, CPA. Shermanetta Carter is a certified public accountant who is a breast cancer survivor. She focuses her practice on tax and business consulting, along with audit and services. As a former revenue agent with the IRS, she has years of tax compliance experience. She has also held the position of tax accountant for nationally recognized financial services firms, controller of a mortgage company, and controller of nonprofit organizations. In addition, Shermanetta served as a board member for the Federal Credit Union in South DeKalb County, Georgia. She is also the Chief Executive Officer at Morris Brown College, an HBCU located right here in Atlanta, Georgia. She graduated from Morris Brown College in 1994. She is a member of the Georgia Society of CPAs and American Institute of CPAs. Within the community, she is an active member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. She's also served on other nonprofits such as the Community Cares Foundation, as well as My Sister's Keeper Foundation for Women. She is an honorary board member of My Sister's Keeper, and I can honestly say that she handles our books and makes sure that we are in compliance as a nonprofit organization. I love her because she is my personal accountant. Handles her CPA firm, handles my finances, Bishop Alvarado and I, and she is just a dear sister and friend. Shermanetta says, "It is my goal to provide you with the answers you need to tough business questions. And I want to think like your business partner rather than your accountant. And through this, I can help your business grow." And I can honestly attest to that, dealing with her personally, as well as with My Sister's Keeper Foundation. And today, she is not here to talk to us about business, about our finances. She's here to talk to us girls about her journey as a breast cancer survivor. And we're just going to have a really candid conversation about what she went through in her journey. And just we want to hear her wisdom and the insights that she's gained over these years. Shermanetta, how long have you been a survivor now? How many years?
Almost 11 years, 10 and a half years.
10 and a half years. And yes. And we actually came into relationship right shortly before your diagnosis, Shermanetta, was when we actually became friends and sisters, and this was long before we were sorority sisters,
Yeah.
and not because of you, but because of me. And so, but just, meeting you prior to your diagnosis and us connecting prior to your diagnosis, and then being in your life after your diagnosis, and to watch your journey, you have been a source of inspiration to me.
Thank you.
And so many other women. And so I just want us to talk a little bit about your journey, and just this whole idea of why we need to take better care of ourselves, and what being aware of our bodies should be like and feel like, and just whatever insight and wisdom that you can give us as a survivor of breast cancer. And so I'm just going to let you share a little bit about your journey. What was it like when you got the diagnosis? Let's start there.
Well, my journey actually started before I got the diagnosis. I am a believer. I'm a woman of faith, and maybe about 5 or 6 months before I was actually diagnosed with breast cancer, I actually had a dream. I had a dream that I was diagnosed with breast cancer. But the great thing about it was, in my dream, it was not dark. There was light at the end of the tunnel. So immediately afterwards, I began to take notice of things that were going on my breast, that my nipple was becoming inverted. And it just so happened that at my church there was a health fair, and I mentioned to one of the healthcare providers there. I was telling her my symptoms, and she said, "You need to go to a doctor right away." And I did that. I went to the doctor, and the doctor told me that, "Wow, it looks like a suspicious mass." And that suspicious mass ended up being diagnosed as breast cancer. So to answer your question, when I was diagnosed, of course, I was fearful. I'm human, but I remembered that dream, and I just, because not this breast cancer is not unto death, and that's what I hung on to. So through the process, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. I went through a lot of things that probably some of the women that you've spoken with about breast cancer have gone through. I went through chemotherapy. While I was going through chemotherapy, I had a mastectomy, and I had reconstruction. I went through radiation, and I'm here alive to talk about it.
Wow. So what was your first thought, Shermanetta, when you heard, there's some things that we, when we hear it, it kind of stops us in our tracks, And so just, can you talk to us about what was your first thought?
My first thought really was anger. Like you mentioned before, we talked about that. I just met you and Bishop Alvarado just a short time earlier. And in 2008 is when I started my CPA firm. And in my mind, I was thinking of all the times to have to go through this. I just started my firm. This is not a good time. So it was just a lot of anger at the time, and not really like anger at God, but just anger, period, at the timing of this. And I never really got that much concerned about death until I had to share this news with my family, because I know we're going to be talking about that whole support network. And so when I shared it with my family, that's when my dad told me that his mom had died from breast cancer. And here I am, 40 years old. I knew that my paternal grandmother had died early. And of course, living back in the day, it was always, she just died. And so just to get that news that my grandmother on my daddy's side died from breast cancer, now that really was a blow. It scared me, but I just I was still trusting God that was not going to be my story. I knew that I wanted to live, and I believe a lot of getting through breast cancer, any other thing that you go through was like, what is your will? My will was to live. And
Okay. You know what? And I'm going to come back to that when you said my will was to live. I want to put a pin in that. I'll come back to that in a minute. But I want to pick up on something that you shared a second ago. So you didn't know that your grandmother had breast cancer until after you were diagnosed and shared it with your family. That's interesting, because what I want to talk about, or what I want to tease out of that, is how different culturally we have now. It's so prevalent. We're talking about our diagnosis. We're talking about breast cancer awareness and other diseases in our community. But growing up, we didn't talk about, like you said, you just heard somebody in my family, so-and-so died. She passed away. Even if they got sick. I remember when I was a little girl, my mom went into the hospital to have a hysterectomy when we were coming up. And they just told us my mom was going to the hospital, but no one told us why she was going to the hospital. No one told us she was having surgery. But it was almost like it was hush tone. It was, you don't talk about this. You don't speak about it. And what I want to ask about that is, how much do you think that being a part of our culture? Thank God we're talking about it now. But back in the day, we didn't talk about those kinds. Some people didn't even want to say the word cancer. Mm-hmm. It was the C word. We were so afraid to even let it out of our mouths. Do you think that has a bearing on our community as it relates to awareness?
It absolutely does. And it's up to us to break that I call the generational curse of just not speaking out. And the blessing behind all of this is that I have 3 sisters now that I've shared with not just my sisters, but specifically my family. My sisters get checked annually every year. My oldest sister, is awesome that we're having this conversation. She had her mammogram about a month ago, and she got called back 3 times. Just yesterday, she went to the doctor and got her final diagnosis, and that it was not any type of malignant breast cancer. It was a cyst, and they drained the cyst from her breast yesterday. So it's just, if I decided to like hold it in and not share, not just the fact that I had breast cancer, but then also to share my journey, and then also just let them know, y'all need to go get checked. Whatever you need to, I'm just thankful that, I know for my family, and I know for yours now, I mean, that generational curse is being broken. Anybody want to know my story, I'm gonna tell it.
You know what? And I'm so glad. I'm glad you're on this podcast sharing your story. And I wanted to dedicate this month. We do a lot of things around breast cancer awareness anyway, as a church and a community. But I thought, this podcast this month is definitely the month that I wanted to dedicate to this, because we're talking about it as a community. And I want women to be able to hear the stories of women like yourself. I have not been diagnosed with breast cancer, and thanks be to God. But I remember one time you said this to me, Shermanetta. You said you felt like it was almost a gift that God trusted you.
Yeah,
be able to go. And that just like revolutionized me when you said that to me. And I was thinking to myself, what? A gift? Hearing something like,
because we all have testimonies, and I thank God that He's given me another testimony. When people hear about me lately, these days especially, they think about accounting. They think of me as the chief financial officer at Morris Brown College. But then just to be able to relate to them on a different level, and to say that, this is how I got to where I am, and it was nothing but the grace of God. But this is how, and I want to walk you through that. That's just another way of, just growing the kingdom.
Yeah. And that's the power in telling our story, because, you're right. We all go through something. It might not be breast cancer, It may not be a physical illness at all. It may be something financial. It may be something with our family. It may be another illness, or just mental illness, mental health, or whatever. But we all go through something. As a matter of fact, I tend to say I don't even like to have people in my circle, in my close circle, and they ain't been through anything. If you ain't been through nothing, listen.
Really?
Because we all go through something, and it has nothing to do with how much we love God or our faith, tradition, or any of that. It's just a part of life. And I said this recently. Some of the things that we are complaining about, or maybe even saying it's the devil or whatever. Some of it is just life. And you go through life, you're going to go through some things, saved, unsaved, Christian, whatever. It's a part of life. The Bible says it rains on the just and the unjust. You said that one of your first emotions was fear. So, anger. You said one of your first emotions was anger. When you dealt with that anger behind hearing I have breast cancer, you had just started your firm. Things were really on the upswing for you. And then all of a sudden you get hit with this diagnosis, and then you go through the process that you went through. And I'll let you share a little bit about, your journey in terms of treatment and things of that nature. But I want to talk about the emotion that you had, the anger. What did you do with that? How did you manage that?
I cried a lot.
Okay.
I cried a lot, and I thank God that if I cry a little bit, excuse me. I know, right? I'm very thankful that I have family and friends who don't allow me to stay in that place, because okay,
it's okay.
I know, right? One of the things that happened was, and like I said, this was just a blessing. This is how God just helped me through this process. One of the things that happened when I first got diagnosed is that I had a family member who she and her family had lost their home, and I had to bring them into my house right at the beginning of when I started treatment. So I had my live-in caregivers. But during that time, people, like you say, in your inner circle, they know you. So she knew that I was dealing with anger and almost going into a bit of depression. And one day she just said, it's okay not just to cry, but it's all right to let it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what I did. I started actually talking. I started talking to her about, my anger, why I'm angry, going down this whole list. And you know what? A lot of my anger, what I found out, that it was like anger, not just about breast cancer, but all these other things that I had been building up in the past as well. And so, all of that anger and unforgiveness, that was probably, enabling that cancer to grow as well. So it wasn't just anger. I think I'm very thankful that I not only dealt with the anger about the inconvenience of cancer, but just other things in my past that I really needed to let go in order to focus on the healing.
Wow. Oh, wow. So you had to face the anger in order to focus on the healing, is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think it's interesting when you say, when you think about it, when you really delved into it and really looked at it, your anger was not just about the breast cancer, but your anger was also related to other things that you've gone through. And sometimes, we go through experiences in life, and we don't stop to process those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
We don't deal with them. We bury them, and we suppress what we're feeling. We don't name it as, I'm angry. If I'm angry, it's okay. And what I love is that you are on this show, you are giving permission. You're giving us permission. Everybody that's listening to this, we're gaining permission to name our anger and speak that thing and put it out there.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate that, because so many times we're told, oh, don't be angry. We're told, we're even told, listen, don't be angry with God. Well, you know what? God can handle my anger. God is not so God is big enough to deal with my anger. And if I'm angry, I can be angry with God. It's okay. It doesn't diminish God being God. And so the fact that you are giving yourself, you gave yourself permission to be angry, to name that, to put it out there, and you're giving us permission. Because it may not be, like I said, it may not be breast cancer. Someone listening to this today it may not be breast cancer, but it may be something else that they're angry about. And then you said something about that you felt like maybe some of the anger that you had, unresolved anger, may have fed the cancer.
Absolutely.
Say more about that.
It's interesting that we're talking about domestic violence awareness month, because a lot of my anger came from that. When I was younger, I was sexually assaulted, and I had gone through counseling, and I had talked it out, and to everybody. And in my mind, I really thought that I was beyond that, but that was one of those those anger points that came out. Like, I'm angry, because, he did this to me. And in my mind, I was thinking, he's probably the reason I'm going through this. Just, it was really interesting. But like I said, once I began to deal with that, that particular anger, there were some things that even happened in my childhood that I really had to go back. Well, I really had to go back to my parents, really, and say, I forgive you, and I hope you forgive me. But this is what I was thinking. These were some of the things that made me, very angry and unappreciative of you when I was growing up. And there was a lot of reconciliation that went on through that process. Now,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. So I'm hearing, our topic is surviving breast cancer, and I'm just writing down a few things that you're saying. So I'm hearing this resolving anger and forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Absolutely.
Wow.
All of
that was a part of your process.
All of that was a part of my healing process, not just the cancer, but physical, emotional, spiritual, all of it. All of it happened.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. Can you share, can you share just a little bit, as much as you can, about the treatment process? Mm-hmm. Because women on here, like, for instance, for me, I'm always doing my breast checks, and you when you feel anything, you just like, oh my God, is this? I remember one day I freaked out because I felt something, and I was like, oh Lord, and then when my sister got diagnosed, oh my God, I was paranoid. When my sister, Inez, was diagnosed, I was just paranoid. And I was just like, oh my God, maybe she got diagnosed, and then maybe I'm going to be next. I'm older than her. And, and so you're constantly in this state of, I think every woman in the back of their mind is concerned about breast cancer. Every woman. I don't know a woman that the thought doesn't come to their mind. And every woman, all of us have been impacted by this disease. We've all had someone that we've lost to breast cancer, or that we've walked through breast cancer, we've supported, we've been a champion for. And so can you share a little bit for those of us that may have not gone through this at all, or those of us who've not been diagnosed or anything like that? What was the process like of, the treatment process? Did you go through any sickness? Were you sick or anything? And I know everybody is different. I know everybody responds differently. So I'm not asking you to give out no blanket thing, but can you just share a little bit of what you went through and how you managed or dealt with it?
Right. Thank you. And I'm glad you mentioned that everybody's process is different. So I'll tell you some of the things that happened to me. And thank God it doesn't happen to everybody the same way. The first process in my healing was chemotherapy. Chemotherapy is a process where different I'm gonna say different oils, different anointing oils are run through your veins to kill as much of the cancer as possible. So one of the side effects for me with chemotherapy was that, I lost my hair. And like I said, prior to going into this, I knew that was going to be one of the issues. And so I would go like this and there'd be clumps of hair and in my hand. And I thank God that I had friends again, and my hairdresser said, this is what's going to happen. We need to go ahead and shave your hair. So she shaved my hair and I started wearing wigs. But just as a side note, for me, when I was going through it, I had to, that song, I Am Not My Hair. So yeah. I did not allow the fact that I didn't have any more hair stress me out or make me weary of the process of getting through breast cancer, because that was my primary focus. The hair grow back if it doesn't know well. There's so many cute wigs and they're braids now. So once I actually got through that chemotherapy, well, actually during chemotherapy, for me, there were some side effects. I had cramps like Charlie horses. There were mornings that I really couldn't get out of bed. I had to take my time to straighten my legs out, straighten my arms out in much pain, drink Gatorade, do all the things that my nutritionist asked me to do, and put on my clothes, either go to my office or meet a client. I remember walking up to a client's office and I was like, I hope she's not looking at the window. I was walking like an old lady who needed a cane just because I was in so much pain. And, but God is good. I got through that part. The chemotherapy, I did have a mastectomy, my right breast, and it was a reconstruction. I have a silicone breast in there now, and the left breast was reduced. And every once in a while I can go back and I can have my left breast reduced again so that it can match my right breast. But it's 10 years out and I don't care. Like today, normally I would wear prosthetic, breast cups so that they could be even. But if you look, honestly, I don't care. These are two different sizes, right? These, you can't see from the side. They're two different sizes and I don't care. And so I'll go out lopsided because I just feel like the most important thing is that I'm healed. I'm not worried about the lopsided breast.
You're right. That's the most important thing. And I love that you didn't mind showing your girls.
If it wasn't on TV, I'll just go ahead and show the whole thing.
But that's the freedom. That's the freedom that I love, that I've seen come out of women who've gone through this process. It's amazing. I've seen women, who were very reserved or whatever before, but now afterwards, I remember when my sister went through and I got jealous. I was like, well, look at you. I need to go and get some lifts and tucks or something. I don't know. But I love that, the freedom that comes out of that. And you're right. Like you said, you're not your hair. You're not your breast. All of that thing, because, women, we go through, I was just talking earlier today, I've been in this natural hair journey, right? And so I started this natural hair journey. Thank you. But yesterday I had a day, I'm telling you, yesterday I was like, forget it. I'm going back. I was just like, I don't like this. I don't know if I can do this. I told Ariel, I said, I'm going back to my partner. And she was like, no, Mom, I promise you, you're almost there. Because I have a picture in mind where I'm going with this, right? Yeah. But I'm in that in-between place. So, and so I'm like, do I cut it back? Do I cut it down? Do I go back to my partner? And then finally today, I got up, I did what I do, put my little stuff in it or whatever. And I was just like, you know what? It's just hair. And if I decide to go back to my perm, then I'm going to go back to my perm. I'm not going to be bound by nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
We hold ourselves in these spaces because of something, it's just hair. So if I want to cut it off, if I want to get a wig, if I want to go natural, if I want to go back to my perm, whatever. But the thing is, the whole idea And what this conversation is helping me, and I'm hoping it's helping any woman that's listening to this, is that who we are on the inside. And you said the most important thing is that we're healed. Mm-hmm. Not our breasts, not our hair, mm-hmm. none of that. But the important thing is that we're healed. And not just healed physically, but even emotionally, because what I hear is that you went through not just a physical healing, but you went through some emotional healing. I didn't even know about your the whole idea of you being sexually assaulted. I didn't know that until now. And so the healing that has taken place in you as a result of going through breast cancer, and now I understand why you said it was a gift.
It really was. It brought it all out. And it's also when we keep talking about the whole image, you know, I was just thinking one of the things that I did think about that I didn't mention was that when I was going through the process of deciding whether I was going to get like the bilateral, both of my breasts removed or what I was going to do, one of the things that I thought about was like, wow, I've never been married. Now my husband's going to look at me and think I'm crazy, or if somebody's even interested in me. So,
wow.
That whole process of we're going back to the emotion and the mental awareness of where you are and how you get through that. Not only did I have my family, I had my sister's keeper, I had my friends at church, but then I was also a part of a support group. And I tell you that it's all right. And then that's another thing. I'm sorry. Black women, we need to be all right to talk to other women or other people, period, about what's going on with us. I'm so thankful for my support group because we talked about all that. And there were women in there who were married and going through this. And some, believe it or not, there was one I remember whose husband couldn't deal with it, but there were more in that room whose husbands not only dealt with it, but they stepped up to the plate and they really were the primary caregivers. So that gave me hope.
Wow. And I'm glad you talked about that whole support. You know, I started the Harmonize Your Life self-care network for women. Mm-hmm. And so I want you to talk a little bit more about the importance of being a part of a support group. That's the reason I started the self-care network, so that we can have a place where we could talk, we could be real with each other, that we can be informed, we could be educated, inspired. We can have other women that have the same goal and passion for self-care, because my goal is, and the whole reason we're doing this podcast and the whole reason I'm doing you've watched me build this network from the ground with doing the retreats, we're doing the podcast and writing the book and all of that, because my goal is, Shermanetta, is to change the narrative for women of color. We don't have to be alone when we're going through things. We can walk together. We can support one another. I don't have to be going through exactly what you're going through in order to support you. So talk about the importance of having that support.
And I think that's exactly what it is. And it's not just for women who are going through, but then also their caregivers. I did invite my family member who was living with me to the support group. And it was amazing how much she poured out about the heaviness that she felt being my caregiver. So I was very thankful that even that came out. And that was nothing I could do. I was going through but I'm just glad she got it out. And so, holding all of that in, all of these things really, if you hold too much in, you're at risk for having, it may not be breast cancer or some kind of cancer, some kind of cardiovascular disease, something that's going to take you out. That's the way I look at it. So now it's not even an issue of like, what's going on. It's like, Lord, who are you going to give me to talk to about this? Because I'm not about to go through this again. And so I think in any woman who feels alone or ashamed, you would be just so amazingly surprised and happy to know that, like Dr. Toni said, it may not be something that she or I went through personally, but we can relate because we have gone through something, and we feel your emotion, we feel, your pain, and we women, we were talking about that earlier, we can't carry everything on our backs, or we'll be broke down. We will be broke down. For me, even during this COVID, I still have to think about what was I doing before COVID in order to not feel like isolated and in the bubble, in this bubble. From time to time, I would go and hang out with girlfriends, but now we got Zoom.
Right.
So let's get on Zoom and hang out with our girlfriends and kind of talk about what's going on. Before COVID, I probably walked a little bit more, but I didn't quit walking. Corner of my street and back, but and then for every once in a while there was one of my neighbors, we get out and walk, and so it doesn't, and another thing too, having a support group doesn't necessarily always have to mean that you're talking about what you're going through, but it's about community, just being with other people, so that for this particular time, either you can forget your problem, or if you're walking with a friend, you can think about how to kind of like fizzle out whatever that is going on. All of that, and it's probably nothing that should be addressed anyways. Sometimes our minds play a lot of mind games with us, and so if you're out just walking around, just doing something that has nothing to do with that situation, it makes everything a lot easier. When you get back home, you're like, wow, why was I tripping about that anyway?
Yeah. So, and that's important. I mean, that whole fellowship, that connection, and just having somebody, even if you're not talking about specifically talking about what you're going through, sometimes just being in the company of other women to laugh together, to cry together, to just, be silly together. It strengthens you in such a way that is so life-giving. I think that's the word I'm looking for. It is so life-giving, and it lets you know that there's nothing new under the sun. It lets you know that if God brought somebody else through, that God can bring you through whatever it is that you're facing, and whether you may not be facing it today, but eventually you may be facing something, and it's just good to know that you have a community of women that you can be connected to. And Shermanetta, I'm so glad that you're a part of my community of women. I'm glad you're a part of your community of women that, I just know that if I need you, you're there, and that you need me, I'm here. And I think that's what it's all about. I think that's what it's all about. So many women are walking through breast cancer alone. So many are walking through sexual violence alone. So many are walking through financial difficulties. You're a CPA. There's so many walking through financial issues by themselves, or just life in general by themselves. And that's why it's so important to be connected to a community. So I want to invite all of you, all of my listeners, all the women that are listening to us. I want to invite you to follow Shermanetta Carter. Let me give you her information here. You can find Shermanetta on IG there at Shermanetta05. You can find her there on Instagram at Shermanetta05. You can find her on Facebook, Shermanetta Carter. You can find her on Twitter at Carter_CPA. You can find her there. You can go to her website at integritycpa.net. That is her own. Listen, you all, Shermanetta's a bad girl. She founded and is running her own accounting firm. She has her own accounting firm. IntegrityCPA.net is the website there. If you need, let me tell you something, she'll help you get your money together. She will help you get your money together, your taxes together. We don't want to be in trouble with the IRS or any of that. She is a wonderful, if you have a nonprofit organization, she consults with nonprofits. I know personally, my Sisters Keeper Foundation for Women, my nonprofit organization that she's been a board member of, and she still is an honorary board member, and she handles our tax documents and to make sure that we're filing the right forms and things of that nature to keep us in compliance. So if you're in need of that kind of help or support, she can give you that. But just follow her life on Instagram. Y'all know how we like to follow people and what they're doing, but follow Shermanetta. She speaks. If you need her to come speak at any of your events, she can speak on this whole topic of breast cancer, and she can speak on women's empowerment. She can speak on financial issues. She is a dynamic woman of God. She is a personal friend of mine and one of the women that I admire the most. Listen, I want you to continue to follow the Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you like to listen to your podcast. You can also watch the podcast now on my YouTube channel at Dr. Toni G. Alvarado. If you've not done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. We're building a momentum there on YouTube. And so I want you to subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications when something is coming out. You will know when something is coming out, when Dr. Toni has posted a new video or when there's a new teaching out or event that you can be a part of. Women, join the Harmonize Your Life Self-Care Network. If you've not joined us, I invite you to come along with us. Women like Shermanetta are a part of the community that I bring. She's one of the resources that I bring into our community. She can tell you of the work that we do in self-care. She's walked with me in this journey, and she can tell you that it is a great work. I want you to be a part of it, though, so that you can connect not only to me, but connect to women like Shermanetta and other women who are a part of the Self-Care Network. Shermanetta, thank you. Thank you
know for having me, Sora.
Thank you, Sora. I appreciate you on so many levels. I appreciate you as a sister, as a friend, as a sorority sister, Sora. I appreciate you as a woman of God, a woman of faith, and just for being a real girl and sharing your story with the women on this podcast. I know that our community is going to be blessed, not just the women, because men have been diagnosed with breast cancer as well. And so anyone that listens to this show, I know will be blessed by your testimony and your transparency on today. So I think we're going to wrap it up here, but I do want to give you one last thing. If you'd like to say give one last word of encouragement to those that are listening to our podcast audience.
Thank you. I just want to say that breast cancer is not unto death. Any type of cancer is not unto death. Just believe God that, there is a testimony through this test. Make sure that you surround yourself with women and men of God who will speak blessings, life, and faith into you. And just believe that you are here for a reason, and God has already ordered your footsteps. So keep on walking.
All right. You heard that. You heard what she said. The woman of God told us, keep on walking. And I am so glad to have you with us on today, Shermanetta. You have been a blessing already. Just you sharing your testimony and you letting us know that this is not unto death. You shall live. You said it earlier. You had a will to live.
I had a will to live. And you have
a will to live, and you're living it, girl. Amen. I remember when your hair fell out. Yeah. I remember when I remember watching it. And now I'm looking at you today. I remember when it grew back, and she got braids in, but y'all, her hair is just gorgeous. I watched it come out. I watched it grow back. I remember the little short curly look, and when it started growing back out, and it's just beautiful. And she's on Team Gray as well, y'all.
That's right. I'm Team Gray. Don't let these braids fool you.
We are Team Gray hair, and because we are not our hair, right, Shermanetta?
That's right.
We are not our hair. Thank you again for being a part of this conversation on today.
Thank you.
Listen, check us out next week. We got more guests coming to you this whole month. We got a whole show prepared this month around breast cancer awareness and domestic violence awareness. Until then, until we meet again, you be blessed in Jesus' name. Hi, this is Dr. Toni Alvarado. I am so delighted about bringing the Harmonize Your Life podcast to you. Would you do me a favor? If you are enjoying this podcast, would you email me at hello@drtonyalvarado.com? I want to hear from you. I want your feedback. I want to know if there are any other topics that you are interested in as it relates to wellness, self-care, nutrition, or just overall bringing harmony into your life. Email me, contact me at hello@drtonyalvarado.com.